Hello, everyone. My name is Bryson Monteon. I'm with PwC Ireland Aviation Finance Advisory Services, coming live to you from the nation's capital. So, not in Ireland, but here in Washington, D.C. I'm also part of the ISTAT Board of Directors. And also, now going forward, I am also heading up all the online content. So, if you have any ideas and thoughts on where for future ISTAT Learning Labs or online offerings, please let me know. We are always looking out to the ISTAT membership for opportunities to promote new projects, ideas, and thought leadership. So that being said, you're kind of stuck with me going forward for better or for worse. So this Learning Lab really is a highlight of our Sustainability Award that we had in 2024. As part of this award offering, we invite the winners to come online and go through their projects and offerings and kind of their journey as to why they won the award. For aviation, sustainability is twofold, both the commitment towards emissions reduction, but also efficiency. Airlines are faced with massive bills which increase or decrease depending on the price of jet fuel. The winner of last year's award aims to deal with both issues. As you all know, Pyka received the award for last year. We had already received 20 nominations for last year's award, all of which exhibited exceptional quality and commitment to sustainability. Nominees came from end of life, part out support, consultancies, service providers, and new technology providers. One of the issues around the Sustainability Award is really demonstrating actual success in reaching a sustainable outcome. We felt when we went through the Pyka nomination that Pyka exhibited tangible success. We know that the Pyka story is intriguing. We really wanted to invite Pyka to come online and talk through their journey as to what made them the winner for the 24 Sustainability Award, but also kind of what Pyka means going forward for themselves, but also the future of both private, commercial, general, and commercial aviation. So, without any further a moment, I'm going to introduce to you Volker Fabian, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Pyka. Now, for most of you, you probably have met Volker in various capacities. He's no stranger to our industry with over 25 years of history, which includes being part of aviation financiers, lessors, BOC, CIT, DVB Bank. But Volker, before I let you come on, there's one thing that kind of strikes me in your own personal narrative is your master's in nuclear physics. And I don't think you and I have ever had a discussion around nuclear physics. So I will leave it at that. But without further ado, Volker, please take us through the Pyka journey. And obviously, there's always questions available on the chat. I'll be moderating questions at the end. We'll give Volker some time to answer those. But Volker, welcome. It's good to see you. And your story is coming up next.
Thank you so much, Bryson. Pleasure being here, and I'm happy to have a fireside chat with you at some point in time about nuclear physics. As much as
my dreams can come true.
As much as I still remember from my college days, but happy to have that at some point in time. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you, ISTAT, for the award that we received last year. Came as a bit of a surprise because, as much as we at Pyka have been able to get some successes under our belts, we weren't necessarily assuming that we would be at the forefront of this, but we're very excited about it. And what I would like to do today for the next 30 minutes or so, take everybody through the Pyka story, how we started, where we are, talk a little bit about the products that we have, and then a little bit, because the overlap to ISTAT is not as clear always, talk a little bit about where ISTAT members and my fellow former industry friends can potentially play a role in what Pyka is intending to do going forward.
So what you're saying is we're not getting rid of you, is what's the takeaway of the story?
That is the problem. You can't get rid of me. I always come back. But one thing I wanted to say, Learning Lab is actually an interesting one as I thought about talking today and explaining a little bit what Pyka has done. One of the things that has driven me personally to think about adjacent industries to the traditional aviation finance industry that ISTAT covers is in fact the learning. And I've been with Pyka now for 3.5 years, and I have learned an enormous amount of stuff that I had no idea about before. Whether it's the regulatory side, the engineering side. I'm not an engineer, nuclear physicist. I understand engineering, but I've learned a lot about the stuff that happens in new technologies and realities in new technologies. And I'm very excited about it because I think that's ultimately what life is about, is learning and trying to stay up to date with the latest developments. So I'm very pleased to talk today. And before, and as I always do when I introduce Pyka, I like to start off just with a video of what the product is actually all about. That gives everybody a good impression of what the product is, and then how we arrived where we are today and where we are hoping to go forward in the future. So I'll put the video on and then we'll go into the presentation.
Introducing the all-new Pelican 2 by Pyka. With the ease of use of smaller systems and the productivity of much larger aircraft, Pelican 2 is a revolution in crop protection. Boasting a 300-liter payload and an 18-meter swath, Pelican 2 is the most productive spray drone on the market. Cover up to 90 hectares per hour with precision unmatched by any other system. Boost efficiency, reduce your spray cost. Designed for simple, intuitive operation, users can easily plan, manage, and execute missions from a laptop computer. Select multiple boom configurations, including hydraulic nozzles or proprietary electric rotary atomizers. When equipped with atomizers, the aircraft dynamically adjusts droplet size in flight to maximize chemical efficiency and minimize drift. Engineered from the ground up for reliable performance during the most demanding periods of the growing season, Pelican 2 ships with 5 sets of hot swappable lithium-ion batteries, ensuring uninterrupted continuous operation. Aerospace-grade components and electric power systems deliver unmatched reliability with minimal maintenance for maximum uptime. Guided by advanced LiDAR, radar, and full autonomy, Pelican 2 operates safely and seamlessly day or night, extending your spray window and targeting pests during optimal conditions. The all-new Pelican 2. Productivity, precision, performance. Visit us at flypyka.com.
Great, wonderful. Good. Let's talk a little bit about what Pyka does and where Pyka comes from, and a little bit more about our products. Good. So, company was founded in 2017 by 4 passionate entrepreneurs and engineers who set out to build the world's most capable electric airplanes. And just to take it right off the bat, we have not today ventured into thinking about passenger transport for the aircraft. There was a short period of time when we considered it, but facing the regulatory environment that we are in and trying to introduce new technologies, autonomous airplanes as we have them, electric aircraft as we have them, very quickly leads you to understand that passenger transport with new technologies is probably a little while out. Founded in 2017 by 4 team members, Michael Norscher, the mastermind behind Pyka, passionate engineer and passionate aircraft designer. As he always characterizes it, when he was small, he built small paper airplanes, and as he grew up, the airplanes grew up, and we have arrived now. He has arrived now, and the company has arrived now at the products that I will present to you today. We're based in California, Alameda, so just in the Bay Area, typical Silicon Valley startup. We've received so far $80 million in funding, venture capital investors. Compared to many other aviation industry OEMs and startups, $80 million over a course of almost 8 years now is a pretty small amount of investment. And given that we have actually 2 successful products out in the market sets us, I think, well apart from many other companies that are out there. We are currently around 74, 75 employees or so, continuing to grow. We're setting out this year and beginning of next year to significantly scale up our production. That will probably help us add a number of people to the payroll. We are globally operating. We are in the US, obviously. We have 1 launch customer for our spray product in the US, but then the majority of the agricultural work and deployments that we have are in Central and South America. You will see it in a little bit when we talk more about our customers. Brazil in particular is a large agricultural market and a big target market and focus area in 2025, 2026 for us. We have been in commercial operation for over 5 years. And as I just mentioned, we are preparing to scale up production. Right now, we're producing about 1 aircraft per month. And next year, we'll probably go to 2, 3, or more airplanes per month, given the demand by customers. This is our facility that everything is being developed in. You can see a few airplanes hanging off the ceilings. This is the first iteration of the spray plane, which was called at the time the E-Grid. This is the very first prototype aircraft that Pyka ever produced, Big Bird, that flew in the Y Combinator project and successfully excited investors so that we could arrive where we are today. This facility is probably capable of handling something like 10 to 20 airplane deliveries per month, so significant room for growth, and we're excited to get there. As I mentioned, we're operating in the US. Heinemann Brothers, most of the ISTAT members will probably not be familiar with them, is the largest private spray company in the US. They have about 45 spray aircraft, which is enormous for the agricultural market. Why have we initially decided to go into ag spraying and the ag world? May not necessarily be known to many people on the call, but ag aviation is actually one of the most dangerous aviation jobs you could ever have. There are, in the US alone, about 1 fatality per month in ag aviation. So trying to develop a product that automates spray services makes total sense. Not only is it cleaner, but it's also safer and saves lives. We are operating in Guatemala with Grupo Hame. We are in Honduras with Dole, our largest ag customer to date. We're entering Ecuador together with Dole later this year. And then I mentioned it earlier, we are very much focused on the Brazilian ag market. We have 4 customers. In fact, yesterday, actually, we onboarded the 4th customer, Agrocavalca. Brazil is a huge ag market and lots of spraying there. There are about 5,500 spray airplanes and helicopters operating in Brazil right now. This is in addition to the multi-rotor spray drones. There are 15,000, 20,000 or so in Brazil right now. So it's a big market opportunity for us. And ANAC, the FAA of Brazil, has been very forthcoming in allowing autonomous airplanes to be used in the ag space, which is why it's a very good market for us to enter into. In the UK, we're working with a company called Skyports. This is for the cargo product that we are using. Skyports is a small delivery drone service, the airline of the drone industry, essentially, and their customers include the NHS, Royal Mail, and are currently developing projects in the Middle East, partially with our airplanes, partially with other smaller drones right now. This is the Pelican Cargo product, autonomous, fully electric, very low operating cost, as low as $15 per hour or so. with a decent range of 200 miles, 320 kilometers, and a payload of 400 pounds. Fully autonomous and a very short takeoff run with max payload. It's actually the younger airplane or the younger product that Pyka has. The AG product was the first product that we developed, but on the back of the successes we had with the spray plane, we had a number of delivery services, logistics companies approaching us and basically asking us, can you modify your spray plane so that we take out the chemical tank and just put boxes in and fly those around? And on the back of those discussions, we've developed Pelican Cargo. First flight was in 2023 when it was announced to the market. And we are working at the moment on 2 projects in the Caribbean specifically as demonstrator for the aircraft. And then we are also very closely involved in DoD work for the cargo airplane. The original aircraft that Pyka developed was the Pelican spray airplane. You just saw the launch video for Pelican 2, so the second generation of the spray airplane. We've developed the aircraft and improved the airplane over the last 2-3 years, in particular through the work that we conducted with Dole. We have now arrived at an airplane with a significantly higher payload, 300 liters of chemical load is what the airplane can carry. Just to give you a feel, DJI drones, the multi-rotor drones that are often being used in the agricultural world, they carry around 40 to 50 liters. So we have about 6, 7, 8 times the capacity of DJI drones. We are smaller than air tractors and thrusters and Ipanemas, the conventional spray airplanes, roughly by a factor of 2. Their payloads are roughly 500 to 1,000 liters or so. But that's not necessarily a market that we are directly going after. So we are looking at smaller fields and smaller payloads and stationary crops that we can continuously spray. What we're offering is full autonomy and in particular extremely low cost compared to the multi-rotor drones and the conventional airplanes. One neat feature of the aircraft is the ability to fly and spray at night. It's something that is usually not done with conventional airplanes because the flight missions are very dangerous, even without flying at night. Our airplane doesn't require daylight. It has a GPS on board, laser altimeter, and LiDAR to see obstacles in the way. So the airplane is perfectly fine and actually better flying at night than during the day. So it doesn't have to contend with glare from sunlight. That's something that is of huge significance to growers and producers in all ag markets. Typically, the application of chemicals at night when the weather is better, when temperatures are a little bit lower, when winds are lower, the applications are significantly more effective protecting the crops than flying during the day. So it's a big selling point for farmers. We have, with the improvements on the airplane, we've increased the productivity of the aircraft a lot. This is a nice picture because it shows you the rotary atomizers that you heard about in the video. These rotary atomizers are electrically powered, and what they are capable of doing is allowing the spray to exactly fall on the crops as they are supposed to. So when the airplane approaches the boundary of a field that it sprays, the atomizer and the airplane starts pulling up, the atomizers slow down, the droplet size increases, and with that you deposit most of the chemicals that you have coming out of the airplane. You deposit all of those on the crops where they're actually supposed to be. That gives our airplane, the Pelican, a significantly higher efficiency of the application. Of 96% of all droplets are actually deposited on the crops, as opposed to traditional turboprop airplanes that have a significantly lower efficiency. Speaking of droplets, one of the things that, or the most important thing for producers when they think about operating our airplane is not necessarily whether it can fly and can do autonomous missions. What's most important for them is that the crops are properly protected. So we've spent a lot of time with our customers in doing spray pattern testing, showing droplet size distributions like this. What you want to see in this test strip is that the droplets are evenly distributed, that the size varies only a little, and that you have a nice curve of spray pattern where the droplets are actually deposited over the crops. So this goes into the depth of the discussion that we have with farmers, but this is essentially what farmers and growers want to see out of the aircraft to be convinced that the protection of their crops is sufficient. I talked about the efficiency of our airplane. We get to direct operating costs on the aircraft of as low as 59 cents per hectare. That compares to the DJI drones and the conventional airplanes very, very favorably. We have significantly higher productivity on the aircraft than multi-rotor drones, and we are infringing upon the conventional airplanes in terms of productivity, but obviously at a fraction of the cost, which is the main importance for farmers. One question that I always get when I present to producers and farmers, given that the airplane is electric, is how do the batteries work and how long do the batteries last? There are, under the nose cone of the aircraft, there are 3 of these battery packs. They are hot swappable. We deliver the airplanes with 5 full sets of batteries. So it allows farmers to continuously operate the airplane through the 5 sets of batteries. They take about an hour and a half to charge, and each triple set of batteries gives you about 30 to 40 minutes of flying time. So with that, that's an important factor for ag producers being able to spray whenever they can. Weather conditions aren't always great, so therefore, if the weather window is right, they want to be able to continuously operate all the time. And with the 5 battery sets that we provide, that is being achieved. We deliver the aircraft with these 5 sets of batteries, as well as a full charge card. So this charge card houses 4 sets of batteries. It's just being plugged into ground power or a generator if no ground power is available, and then is capable of charging the batteries while the operation is ongoing. The batteries themselves, that's always another question that we get, is how long do they last? We have tested the batteries extensively in high temperature environment, in low temperature environment, and we are confident that the batteries will last for probably 4 to 5 years of operation. And to give the customer ease of mind, we provide a full 3-year warranty on the batteries. Speaking of aerospace and testing, we are, after all, an aviation company, an aviation OEM. So we do structural testing, corrosion testing, temperature testing, battery testing, just as any other aviation manufacturer. This is our wing load testing machinery. So every wing set that we receive from our supplier in Mexico goes into the wing load testing machine and is then being structurally tested to make sure that it fulfills our requirements. Maintenance on our aircraft is quite different from conventional airplanes. Since the airplane is 100% carbon fiber with really only one rotating part, being the engines or 4 of the motors, our maintenance is significantly easier. Anything that breaks on the airplane is simply being removed and replaced. And we have 100 flight hour inspection intervals, which are essentially a walk around and opening of panels and checking that there's no corrosion on any of the systems, But other than that, maintenance is significantly easier than what you would have in conventional airplanes. In addition to the training that we provide for customers, we also have an online support for customers, so they can contact us by phone, by WhatsApp, by Slack, any kind of support we can deliver to the customer directly 24/7. And in addition to that, we provide a 1-year full warranty on the complete aircraft. So anything that potentially fails during the operation that shouldn't be failing initially, we will come and replace and honor our warranty on it. Talking a little bit more about the difference between what Pyka does and how the ISTAT community is used to the aviation industry, and thinking about how to become a valuable part of it, it's probably worthwhile understanding the differences between commercial airplanes and new technologies such as Pyka, as well as anybody else. Financing volumes in commercial airplanes, as you guys all know better than I do, $50 million or more is sort of the typical ticket size. Our airplanes are a lot cheaper. We sell the aircraft for around $500,000. So therefore, we are focused on being streamlined when it comes to documentation, lease documentation, sales documentation, and the discussions with the financiers that we're working with are also a little bit different to conventional airplanes. Economic useful life for commercial airplanes, 25+ years or so. New technologies are typically, given the fact that they continue to evolve, I expect it to be around 5 years. When customers ask me about this and say, okay, so what happens after 5 years? Can I continue operating the aircraft? I always give the example, you can continue using our product beyond 5 years. There is no ultimate life limit to the airplane. But think of it a little bit like an iPhone. I have an iPhone 13, and I can probably use my iPhone 13 for another 6 years, but chances are I'm going to upgrade to the next model at some point in time in the near future. And that is pretty much how new technologies coming to the aviation industry should be thought of as well. The regulatory environment is well developed in commercial aviation, and the FAA and other regulators are trying to develop frameworks for drone operations for new technologies. It's not quite developed yet, which is one of the reasons why we like Brazil a lot, because in Brazil, the regulator has actually taken a very forward approach to allowing ag drones to operate. But globally speaking, it is basically still under development. There are lots of aviation authorities around the world, including big and well-renowned ones, Australia, and obviously the European regulators, that are not quite 100% there yet, providing a full regulatory framework for the operation of new technologies. User base is emerging. Obviously, we are luckily at the forefront of actually having customers that are paying us revenue and are at a point where we are starting to scale up fairly quickly. But globally speaking, for all new technology companies, the customer base as well as the installed fleet is still emerging. Residual values and scrap values for the airplanes are somewhat to be determined, given the fact that the installed user base is still emerging, that the installed fleet is still emerging. There haven't been any trades of our airplanes or other new technology planes amongst customers yet. So it is TBD where residual values over the course of the next few years will check out for this. So how can ISTAT participants contribute and participate in new technologies? At this point in time, I think it's upon the manufacturers like Pyka to start creating more installed fleets to find a broader user base for the customers. Once that happens, there will be, and we had discussions already with a number of leasing companies, traditional leasing companies, in the aviation industry to talk about, what could lessor programs look like. The similar or the typical leasing programs where OEMs sell to leasing companies is something that will probably happen with new technologies as well, keeping in mind the slightly different parameters of the usage of the aircraft. Residual value forecast over time will become more important. We have talked about portfolio purchases of our asset. We are, in particular, with one of our customers, we are talking about a large-scale order for deployments of the airplanes throughout an entire region of the world. And as such, we are looking at financing partners that say, I would be happy on the back of the strong credit that you're working with, providing a portfolio financing for you for a large number of airplanes. Not necessarily in the first place taking full asset risk, but relying on the credit of the ultimate end user. And then on the cargo side, we have, as I said, we're working on 2 projects in the Caribbean right now to get a demonstrator operation off the ground. My strong belief is that as proving flights and demonstration flights of these kind of aerial logistics services take hold and become reality, my strong belief is that you will very quickly see adoption of the product by the likes of UPS and FedEx and Amazon over time, and incorporate those into their existing fleets. And that will open up the opportunities, large-scale opportunities for working with lessors and financiers that are in the ISTAT community. And then last but not least, since this is the Learning Lab, I know that many ISTAT members are curious looking into new technologies, and the question always comes up, or in discussions when I talk to my friends in the ISTAT community, the question always comes up. It's like, what should I be looking out for? How can I judge whether a business model of a particular new technology OEM is really viable? Think of the regulatory environment to understand how far along is regulation that allows this particular product that you're looking at to ultimately succeed. And then what is the value add of the new technology to the customer? I talked a lot about our air customers. The value add for air customers is pretty clear to see. It allows them to lower their cost at the same quality of spray service that they have from the conventional airplanes. It saves lives and it is greener. So it's a pretty clear value add for the customer. And that is, I think, the key to our success, to Pyka's success of having been able to deploy airplanes to customers and generate revenues coming in. And then look for concrete achievements. There are many OEMs out there right now, new technology development companies out there right now that are very good at touting social media successes, but look for concrete achievements. Look for deployments of airplanes. Look for customer orders, not necessarily letters of intent or memorandum of understanding, but actual deployments. Where's actual revenue coming? That is ultimately, I think, the best indicator to show if a company is prone for success going forward and has market acceptance through a committed customer in paying for the aircraft. Overall market potential obviously is important. I didn't necessarily think and understand how big the ag market and the ag spraying market really is. It's a huge market. I've been talking about Central America, South America. Obviously, the US ag market is huge. So there's huge potential for Pyka in that space alone to grow. But then you think of Africa. A lot of bananas in the world are grown in Western Africa. Australia is a huge ag market as well. So we feel that we are, on the Pyka side, we are just at the outset of the expansion that we will see around the world. And then be aware, as I always say, everything always takes longer and likely much longer than you would anticipate it. If this is a product that's being developed that has high regulatory hurdles to overcome for deployment, who is going to fund the development over time? Before I joined Pyka, I spoke to a good friend of mine from the ISTAT community, and I asked him, I said, so how long does it take and how much money does it take to get an aircraft product certified for commercial operation? And the answer was 7 years and $700 million. Pyka has gone a different route because we are not looking at passenger service. Our regulatory approvals came much quicker, but we've done it with $80 million so far. And in fact, we had first full commercial approval about 3 years ago and have full commercial approval for the airplane in the US. So it is possible to do it with a lot less money and a lot less time. But in particular, when you think of passenger operation with new technologies, with electricity as the main power source, the regulatory hurdles will be high, and the regulators will take a long time to ultimately give you approvals to fly, and somebody has to fund the development over time. And not everybody that is currently out there in the market is going to make it to the long-term success. That concludes my presentation, and come and see us if you're on the West Coast. Come to Pyka. I would be more than happy to show you a flight demonstration of our airplane and take you around our facilities and introduce you to the team. And thank you for your attention, and I'll open it up for questions.
Fantastic, my friend. We did get a couple questions, one from Apple saying, why are you still using an iPhone 13? I think it's time, time to upgrade, maybe. I don't know if they even support apps for that phone. Anyway, I digress. But no, this is fantastic, Volker. And I think, speaking of just support, one question that came to my mind, and there's a couple questions in the queue, so we'll get to them in a second, but is thinking about on-ground support. You mentioned this, and it kind of what's required on ground to run these aircraft.
So we deliver the airplanes with everything that's needed to operate the airplane. You have a ground control station, which is essentially a laptop with proprietary Pyka software that allows you to plan flight missions. We provide the batteries, obviously, and the charge cards that I mentioned. We provide a trailer that you can put the airplane on and transport around from one field to another if needed. We provide antennas, we provide spare parts, everything that comes with it. So really what customers need, and this is true both for farmers as well as for cargo operators, really what you need is ground power or some kind of power source. A runway. The runway doesn't have to be an asphalt runway. It can be dirt, it can be gravel, it can be grass. And the runway dimensions are a lot less than what you have with conventional airplanes. So we typically tell our customers you need about a runway length of 250 meters.
Good.
And about 10 meters in width with a little bit of clearance on the side to accommodate the wings. But
So,
that's really all you need. And then we provide training to the operators.
Yep.
The training sessions are about 2 to 3 weeks for pilot training and about a week or so for maintenance training. And that's pretty much it.
So, when you say runway, could you theoretically just take this to Salinas, find a field, and take off? Like, does it have to be a runway, or is there a requirement there actually has to be a runway that's considered a runway in so much as not a Walmart parking lot or a field?
No, it doesn't have to be a runway. In fact, it's probably better if it's for farmers, if it's just in the field and it's a dirt road. We have prepared, in our particular case, or one of our test flight ranges is at a farm outside of Stockton, California, Victoria Island. and we've just taken one of their dirt roads and prepared it as a runway. Just filling up the potholes to make sure that the airplane doesn't run over potholes. But other than that, that's all that's needed.
So, I mean, let's think through this because I'm intrigued. A is with regards to normal flight rules. You have ADS-B. Is there a GPS locator so that people, other, aircraft to know that there's something there? And then B, the Central Valley gets socked in with fog massively. These can fly during IMC conditions without any issues because it's all. I mean, you can still spray during foggy season if needed.
So the spray plane does not have ADS-B.
Okay.
The cargo plane, the cargo plane has been retrofitted to have ADS-B. Deconflicting with other air traffic is probably the biggest challenge for new technologies in general. So on the spray plane, we typically just tell the other spray planes that are out there what time we are intending to fly, and we avoid flying in the same airspace with them. For cargo, that's a little bit different. So for cargo, we need to fly in drone corridors, in segregated airspace, essentially. The development of detect and avoid systems that allows our aircraft and others to eventually see conflicting air traffic is still in development, and there is no certified detect and avoid system out in the market. But I know that a lot of companies are working on it. And I think in particular for cargo operations, passenger operations ultimately as well, that will be a game changer. When a detect and avoid system is approved by the FAA and other regulators and can be easily incorporated on airplanes like ours, that's what's going to open up the market for autonomous flights for A to B flight missions.
I mean, and so, yeah, that was one of my questions too, was, do you think there'll be public acceptance for autonomous flight for carrying passengers? Is that a part of your path eventually, or is this a technology that leads to that? And then have you gotten any feedback when you kind of maybe soft test that idea, like carrying packs? Yes, no, nah, or is it really exciting?
So we, I mean, when I think of the Pyka future over the next 20 years or so, I definitely see us also thinking about passenger travel or passenger operations. But there is, I think, in terms of public acceptance of autonomous airplanes flying passengers around, I would be hesitant today to do that too, which is why we, Pyka, have decided to go down the route of not looking at passengers today. I think once you get to a point where we had 1 million flight missions and we had, I don't know, thousands of kilometers flown autonomous cargo services with the according safety record, I think that's when the time comes when public perception, when you can make the case to the regulators as well as to the public, this is safe transport. But I don't see that happening in the next 5 years, 10 years, probably in the next 10, 15 years or so, you will see that kind of advance coming to fruition.
Yeah, no, I think we had probably a massive setback in DC here in January, and kind of looking at transport, especially low altitude transport, and helicopter rotorcraft, and kind of in the DC area. And I think that's probably set us back a little bit. Probably a step that we need to happen, given the fact that that corridor is pretty congested. So, switching gears a little bit, question came across about battery life. Any ability to kind of swap out batteries after 5 years? Like what's the 5 year kind of threshold? You mentioned that. Let's go through that again. And then also, is the battery cost most of the cost of the actual aircraft? I mean, you'll get a Tesla, it's going to cost you 30 grand to get a new battery. Is the major cost of the aircraft right now the battery? Let's walk through the economics of that, and then also the ability to trade out.
Yeah, the biggest single piece and the biggest single cost item on the airplane is the batteries. So, for example, if you operate the spray plane for 5 years and you want to replace the batteries, the whole set of 15 batteries, individual battery packs, and replace that, we are quoting it at a cost of around $50,000 right now. So that is the biggest single item, cost item on the airplane today. Yes, it will be. The intent is in 5 years' time, you continue operating the aircraft and you just buy new batteries. That is the intent, and that's going to be possible. But that's where my iPhone example comes in. It probably makes more economic sense for a customer to then say, well, let me just upgrade to the third generation Pelican airplane. And with that, you may have even more efficient batteries that come with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, battery technology has, I mean, if you took battery technology that we had 20 years ago, the thing would weigh a ton, and the life would be, probably a quarter of what you're able to offer with your current product. Yeah. So you started off with a global footprint. I think that's amazing. Let's talk about the challenges that you faced. I'm sure every jurisdiction has its own kind of set of rules. You alluded to that. Anything kind of strikes out as kind of more or less complicated, learning less, takeaways, lessons learned?
You really have to talk to each individual regulator and understand the way they are looking at allowing you to operate in their territory. Give you a couple of examples. I mentioned that we are operating in Honduras. We approached the Honduran regulator on getting flight approvals for our aircraft before we ever had FAA approvals. And a lot of other regulators that we spoke to in Central America said, well, come back to us once you have FAA approval, and then we're just going to carbon copy whatever the FAA has given you and going to allow you to fly there as well. The reason we went to Honduras is not only because there are a lot of bananas being grown, and Dole is one of the largest companies in Honduras, but also because the regulator was willing to listen to us. We went to the Director General, we presented ourselves and told them, look, this is what we're trying to bring to the industry. Here are the benefits to a company like Dole, to the public in general, and the economy of Honduras itself. And they said, look, we understand that you don't have approvals today, but what can you do and how can we help you getting to a point where you can operate here and can bring the benefit to the economy? So the Honduran regulator was actually very forthcoming in working with us and very understanding, and given their small size, capable of working regulation around what our airplane can do without being unreasonable and with obviously safety in mind. But they were more nimble than the large aviation authorities like the FAA and ANAC. So there's one other one that I'm not going to name that is the exact opposite. And they say, if you want to come to us, they're not necessarily much bigger than the Honduran regulator. But they said, if you want to come to us, if you want to bring your technology here, fantastic, but you have to bring an airplane, and here's the list of 75 different requirements you have to fulfill. And that's a tough one for a company like Pyka to do, because we don't have that much money that we can just send out airplanes and people and do 6 months demonstration just for a regulator without knowing whether we're ultimately going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So we still talking to them, and hopefully we're going to get approvals at some point in time. But you really have to look at each individual regulator separately to understand what their approach is and how they think about allowing new technologies to enter the market.
Do you envision building the aircraft outside of California? Could you export this to Europe or Asia and have them built there and share technology, share it and have a joint venture situation that allows for a regulatory streamline because you're now employing locals? Is that something part of the future, or is it staying in California for now?
It's going to stay in California for now. I showed the picture. We just moved into our new facilities last year, so it is meant to be the final assembly line and development center for Pyka. I think if we will at some point in time think about manufacturing and delivering airplanes somewhere else, the first place is probably going to be Brazil. Because Brazil is such a big market. As I said, 5,500 conventional spray airplanes there right now. So that has a potential for us for 10,000 Pelicans or so. So it would, and there's a tax angle to it as well. Manufacturing in Brazil would potentially help us on that side as well. It's in discussion every now and then when we talk about how can we optimize cost structures for customers. It's in discussion, at what point in time shall we think about seriously to produce somewhere else, and that somewhere else in the first place is going to be Brazil.
So taking that into account, kind of the discussion we had about passenger stuff, I mean, for you guys, what's the short-term, long-term product development look like for you guys?
So near and short term for the existing airplanes is to refine the Pelican 2, the spray airplane, make it as robust and reliable as possible. I think we have arrived in terms of performance. We have arrived at a point where the customers say, this is really valuable for us and I can take it as it is. So making it as reliable as possible. Working on the ability to fly beyond visual line of sight with regulators for both ag as well as for cargo. For cargo, obviously, that's necessary because you're flying A to B. Spray, you fly from A to A, but you may be spraying a big field where you may lose visual line of sight of the airplane. And so developing with the regulators a pathway to getting approvals to fly beyond visual line of sight. That will require us to do a lot of proving flights, a lot of extended visual line of sight flights to eventually get there. That's sort of the pathway in the first place for the spray airplane. Eventually, a lot of customers ask us to think about an enlarged airplane that has probably 3 to 4 times the capacity for spraying, that actually starts competing with the attractors and with the thrusters that are in the market today. In my eyes, that will require us to have a solution for beyond visual line of sight flying, because one of the things that the air tractors can do and we cannot do today is take off from an airplane, fly 30 kilometers, and then spray a field and come back. We cannot do that today. Not easily. We can do it, but not easily. So if we get to a larger airplane, if we are thinking about a product development, and we want to develop a larger airplane, there needs to be a solution how we can fly BVLOS with regulatory approval. And on the cargo side, very similar, working on BVLOS flight approvals, getting demonstrator projects off the ground, and then continuing to work with the DoD on specific requirements that they have. And second step, also a large cargo product. And all of this is going to happen before we ever think about passenger travel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And cargo seems to be the natural intermediate step. I mean, you can go into cargo commercial operations. You mentioned FedEx, UPS, especially the short haul stuff, going to places that nobody wants to fly. I mean, it's easy enough to kind of. I think that trajectory seems like a natural step given the technology capability and the range, and then that sector that's easily attainable. So I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the current financing environment. We talk about the trading environment. Where does the new administration come in when it comes to trading? What does that mean for you, given that you're a U.S. company? How do tariffs fit into this as you export? These are things we probably wouldn't have to talk about, but here we are. So, what's this mean for you guys?
We're trying to figure it out on a day-to-day basis, like everybody else, I suppose. We have not been, or our products have not been hit by tariffs yet from other countries. Brazil has a pretty stiff import tax to begin with. So it's something that customers in Brazil, unfortunately, are used to. So it hasn't necessarily posed a problem yet. It provides a little bit of an uptick in cost for us from our suppliers. The main supplier, and I mentioned it earlier, is in Mexico, providing wings as well as part of the airframe so far. So that's an uptick in costs. we are, as I said, we're making it up and we're trying to figure it out as we go along. Has not been a major impediment to our business so far, and hopefully it continues that way. Yeah, that's really where we are.
Yeah, no, I mean it's. I can imagine just these simple things that really kind of people lose visibility on as far as where you're getting stuff. So I guess the batteries are made in the U.S.
So the battery cells are automotive cells that we
Okay.
actually buy from China.
Yeah.
All of the packing up of the batteries, battery management system, everything else is done at Pyka, but the individual cells we actually buy from China.
Okay.
We've had suggestions from some of our government customers in particular to think about using other batteries from the US, but quite honestly, the most cost and energy efficient batteries we could find so far have been from China. But we are open to suggestions what else to use without increasing the cost of our product.
So I mean, if you can talk through it, what would that cost be? I mean, 59 cents an hour to operate it right now. Use a U.S. battery. What is there a multiple on that, or is I mean, has it just become? I mean, or maybe it's not kind of completely visible yet.
Yeah, it's not a multiple on it, but it will probably, I would have to run the numbers, but it will probably increase the cost of the airplane itself by, I would say, probably 10% or so
Okay.
overall. So it's not an insignificant increase. And we are, as Pico, we've developed the product. We are not at a stage where we have cost optimized on everything that we do today. So we are ultimately trying to bring down manufacturing cost as opposed to increasing manufacturing cost by using other batteries.
Yeah. So you mentioned this quickly, and then we have to wrap up in a couple of minutes. But the financing community, you've speaking, talking to the usual suspects that you and I know well, and you mentioned those dialogues. Any interesting questions that come out that maybe you're intrigued by, or I mean, do you see the interest kind of formulating? Again, the decimal point is well below. You'd have to kind of make a material. Hey, somebody has to go in and want like you look at say 10,000 to Brazil to really get even to where we would need to be, not that quantum, but large quantums to get anywhere close to where people get out of bed for investment and putting the brain power to it. What's been the most intriguing discussions you've had with our usual suspects?
I think I've had a number of discussions, not just at ISTAT conferences, but also separately having been approached on, is there a leasing product, a leasing model that the industry can develop for Pyka? And I think it's a lot what I said earlier, how and where can the financing community participate and contribute to Pyka? I think we are still in the early stages. And so it's a lot of us explaining where we are today and when the right time is going to be to engage with the financing community. It doesn't help Pyka today to sign an MOU with a leasing company for 500 airplanes because we're not quite there yet. The time will come. So the discussions that I've had have been educating on both sides and interesting to just take the leasing community that I have known for so long along the road of where are we and how are we going to get there, and give us a little bit of time, but there is opportunity to come. When you think of, a lot of people compare our Osprey airplane to the multi-rotor DJI drones. DJI, I think, sells about 10,000 drones per year. We might not necessarily sell 10,000, but if we sell 1,000 per year, there are financing opportunities to come. It's going to take us a little bit longer, but we are definitely going to get there.
Cool. Great. We're at the top of the hour. Any final thoughts, my friend, on this? This has been, I found immediately educational. I've listened to your pitch, seen the movie a couple of times, but every time you tell us something new, and I think it's just the beginning of the road here. I mean, there's so much technology here, and I like the path. I think, again, mentioned like sustainability is not this political kind of arch. There is a desire for safety here, keeping people safe. Also, cutting emissions is part of that, and along with, again, for even the commercial aviation, lower costs on fuel. There's no fuel here.
Yeah.
This technology will be, one step among many to get us, beyond our lifetime. You and I will be long gone before we see anything, I think, in a wide body aircraft coming to this technology. But the future is exciting nonetheless. So I appreciate the time. But any final thoughts before we jump off?
Yeah, no, thank you again for the invitation, and anybody who is listening on it on the YouTube channel later on. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You saw my email address, and my phone number is also still alive on the presentation. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer questions. This technology is here to stay, and it's going to shape the future. The development is not as rapid as people were hoping for in 2019, 2020 or so, when the hype started, and a lot of funding has dried up. So Pyka is also always looking for funding sources.
Yep.
So feel free to contact me, but the technology is here to stay, and it is going to change the future. Maybe not necessarily in my business career lifetime so much anymore, but many of the younger listeners will probably enjoy seeing electric airplanes flying around, even with passengers on board, sometime during their professional careers.
All right. Keep fighting the good fight, my friend. Good to see you as always, and see you very soon.
Thank
Take
you
care,
so much.
everyone. Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.